Yeah, go for it.
Okay, hello everybody. Thank you for attending. My name is Karim Baghery. And as you can see today, I'm going to talk about Tiramisu, which is a new construction that we propose to build black box simulation extractable NIZKs in the updatable CRS model. And this is joint work with Mahdi Sedagat at KU Leuven, and the current version of our draft is available in this address. So as you know, in the standard CRS model, non-interactive range proof is a three-party protocol that there is a trusted party who generates some public parameters known as CRS and shares with prover and verifier for proof generation and proof verification. Usually in practice, we expect that such system guarantees some security, especially against malicious party. We first expect that if this verifier is malicious, so he shouldn't be able to learn about anything about witness from the proof, and which we call it zero knowledge. And also we expect that if the prover is malicious, so she shouldn't be able to convince the verifier about the statement. And this property is known as a soundness. But in zk-SNARKs, which are very basically widely used family of non-interactive range proofs, we achieve something slightly stranger, which is called knowledge soundness. And knowledge soundness basically gives a guarantee that if she can give a proof, basically she knows the witness. And this knowing is usually formalized by extraction, and this extraction is either done by black box extraction or non-black box extraction. And the difference between non-black box and black box is that in non-black box extraction, we assume that the extractor has access to the source code of adversary, and usually they are done based on knowledge assumptions. One other challenge was that there is a trusted setup phase in zk-SNARK. So during last few years, there have been valuable works to improve the security of zk-SNARKs or even decrease the trust in the setup phase. And in, for example, in some works, they use MPC protocols, and in some works, they use subversion security. But at the end, finally, today, we have the state of the art in black box simulation extractable stuff that we can achieve black box simulation extractability and zero knowledge under a trusted setup. And it is shown that black box simulation extractability is sufficient for UC security. And simulation extractability basically means that you can achieve knowledge soundness even if you, as an adversary, have seen arbitrary number of simulated proofs, basically. And in the other way around, I mean, this updatable setting, basically it allows parties, prover or verifier, to join the CRS generation protocol and eliminate the trust on the setup phase. In that setting, we have achieved to updatable non-black box simulation extractability along with subversion zero knowledge. Subversion zero knowledge basically means that prover doesn't need to trust anyone, and the protocol achieves zero knowledge. So by considering this, basically we tried in new construction that we call it Tiramisu. We tried to achieve black box extractability like as the state of the art that COCO framework achieves, but trying to minimize the level of trust. So in this work, we show that achieving subversion zero knowledge with black box extractability basically, as already observed by Bella et al., is impossible. In 2006, it was already observed, but we show that if we downgrade subversion zero knowledge to the setting that we can achieve updatable zero knowledge, then we can achieve black box simulation extractability in the updatable setting. Basically, it means that none of prover and verifier needs to trust, but they can join to the CRS generation protocol, and the protocol will achieve zero knowledge and black box extractability. But how we did that? Let's look at the COCO framework, because our plan basically was moving COCO to the updatable CRS model. COCO framework gets a sound NIZK and it does lots of changes in the, defines a new language L prime and does lots of changes and achieves to black box simulation extractable NIZK. So in the case of zk-SNARKs, as we already have non-black box extractor, for example, if you imagine the state of the art zk-SNARK, so it guarantees non-black box knowledge soundness. So basically, it is shown that by this part, we can achieve to black box extractability by technique that which is quite standard by encrypting the witnesses using a public key given in the CRS. And then using this part, this is RAM technique from Bella and Goldwasser from 90 that you can achieve simulation soundness. But about zk-SNARKs, you can achieve even non-black box simulation extractability. So this is shown that these constructions that are lifted by COCO are used in different UC protocols because of previous result from GRAD 2006 shows that you can realize black box simulation extractable, in the UC framework. And different constructions started to use this kind of construction as a UC secure NIZK. So we started to think about to construct such system, but in 2019, I showed that since achieving black box extractability and subversion zero knowledge is impossible at the same time, because zero knowledge says that you shouldn't be able to learn about witnesses even you have generated the CRS. But black box extractability says that if you have given the trapdoors of CRS, you should be able to extract the witnesses from the proof without getting access to the source code of adversary. So here we basically, in 2019, we showed that if we remove the first part of COCO framework, the second part would allow us to build constructions that would achieve subversion zero knowledge. Basically, prover doesn't need to trust anyone to achieve zero knowledge. And we will also achieve non-black box simulation extractability. Basically means that the protocol guarantees simulation extractability, but verifier needs it to trust to the CRS generator. Recently, in this workshop, also we saw the paper that was presented last week. Abdul Maliki et al. They showed that using the similar technique, but with a different construction that was proposed by DS in 16, that basically is a signature scheme. We can use the same technique and also achieve to subversion zero knowledge plus updatable non-black box simulation extractability. Basically, I would say that their construction is the strongest possible that we can achieve with non-black box extraction. So this is the reason that we downgrade subversion zero knowledge to updatable, but achieving to black box. So in this construction that we recently proposed, Tiramisu, we say that if you have given, we have given updatable zero knowledge and non-black box simulation extractable SNARK, that this Lamiso actually made it. So we can easily, define an encryption scheme, but in the updatable CRS model, basically this encryption scheme should have some properties that its public keys are updatable and the party should update and give a proof. And we show that we can construct such construction using key homomorphic crypto systems. And also we show that LGAML can be sort of instantiated in the pairing-based groups and can achieve such property. And then we can show that this new defined language would give us a construction that achieves updatable zero knowledge and unupdatable black box simulation expected. So in summary, what we did in Tiramisu, basically already the state of the art was updatable non-black box simulation extractable plus subversion zero and SNARK. And then we added one layer to this level, and we show that if we downgrade this subversion zero knowledge to updatable zero knowledge, because it's impossible to achieve with black box extractability. So we can achieve updatable black box simulation extractability and updatable zero knowledge. So also here in table, you can see that the constructions that can achieve black box extractability here, for example, these constructions cannot achieve to subversion zero knowledge. But once you, downgrade subversion zero knowledge to updatable zero knowledge, basically you can achieve black box, and we show that we can achieve updatable black box. But what does it mean in practice? In practice, basically means that prover and verifier can join to the, update the CRS, and they wouldn't trust to the CRS generator, and the protocol will achieve black box extractability and simulation extractability. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Karim. Well done also for being exactly on time. We actually have time for one question if anyone has. Okay, that's okay. So here we have Karim's contact details if anyone wants to be in touch regarding the presentation, the Tiramisu. Okay, thank you, Karim. Eduardo, you are up next. Eduardo, yeah, you can.
Okay, I will share my screen now.
Yeah.
Here. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, good.
You can start when you're ready, and I'll start your 8 minutes now.
Okay, good, thanks. My message here is short. I will present our implementation of SONIC protocol and some tests that we are doing with private transactions. So we implemented SONIC, and it's an updatable setup protocol. So we have this feature implemented. It's really important because some applications can't be used if you have no way to trust the setup. And we have a constraint system that is similar to R1CS, very similar, but unfortunately it's not compatible. So although it's similar, the small difference make a huge problem for compatibility and interoperability. And the good news here is that we open sourced the implementation recently. Last week we created the GitHub and made it public. So you can see here the link. And well, beyond the implementation of SONIC protocol, we implemented some gadgets, Boolean operations, elliptic curve operations on jujube curve, commitments. Well, basically the same building blocks that we have for sapling. And so we have the Merkle tree, and we have also Pedersen commitment, but in our case, we replaced the Pedersen commitment in the Merkle tree by Poseidon function. And we also implemented Blake 2. So with all those building blocks, we could implement the circuit for private transactions. So here we can see the circuit represented with these boxes. Well, the Merkle tree here, I'm not saying that we are using Poseidon function. It's another building blocks inside Merkle tree. And well, it was a big effort. This circuit was implemented by hand. And because we have, as I'm going to show next slide, we have a compiler, but in the case of a specific circuit in this constraint system, it's much more efficient to do it by hand. So basically, our implementation of this private transaction system is summarized by the replacement of growth 16 by SONIC, and the replacement of the hash function in the Merkle tree by Poseidon. So this is what we did in this experiment, and you can check out on GitHub. Well, actually the circuit is not yet there, but you can use SONIC to implement your own circuits. We have lots of examples there to see how to implement a circuit. And we have good news about the results. We have some timings here, and you can see that in order to generate the spanned circuit, for the proof, proving it takes 9 seconds, and verification takes 58 milliseconds. It's not as good as growth 16, but it's pretty much comparable. It's just a little bit less efficient. And we have the helper. So there is also this entity that's going to help the computation of the circuit. And it takes 6 seconds. It's supposed to be done by miners, for example. So that's the idea. The miners can help the calculations. So this is an optimization of the protocol. And for the output circuit, it's almost 1 second to prove it, and 15 milliseconds to verify the proof. And the helper is very efficient, just 600 milliseconds. So as I mentioned, this is pretty much comparable to Zcash implementation, but we have the non-trusted setup. So, well, there is no free lunch. So we are not as efficient as Zcash, but the price, I would say it's cheap. You don't pay too much to have this updatable setup. Well, as I mentioned previously, we have the compiler. So the compiler can, we have a functional language that can be compiled to circuits. But for private transactions, we can have 50% more efficient implementation if we do it by hand. So we tailored the implementation of the circuit just for this specific example for private transactions. And the compiler can be used for private smart contracts. So it's a generic compiler. So it's very powerful, and but it's going to be open source soon. I don't think it's already available, but it will be available soon, also the compiler. And I would like to mention a couple of challenges that we had during the implementation. And this is important in terms of interoperability. We need to check the way that things get implemented in Sapling. And if we want to have interoperability, we need to use the same generators in the elliptic curve. We need to use the same personalizations in hash functions and encoding. So there are a lot of small details that are important to be consistent with our implementation when compared to other implementations. So those details are sometimes mentioned in the workshop, and I think it's important to discuss those details because we need to have standard generators and personalizations so that if people implement those standards, they can talk to each other in these protocols. And also the hash to point methods. These are all important details for consistency of different implementations. And we also had a lot of challenges to do the implementation by hand because we need to implement things using a system that is similar to R1CS. This is challenging by itself, but it's expected. So, well, this is it. This is the description of the work we have been doing in last months. So IOHK now is releasing this implementation so that the community can play with it. And if you have further questions, I think that the communication channel is GitHub. It's pretty much the way we can communicate. And we have, well, I can leave the link for you here. And well, we are also hiring. You can participate as IOHK employer, but you can also participate in the community using the open source version. So this is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Eduardo. Again, we have time for one question. If anyone wants to ask anything.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Can I ask one?
Yes. Yes.
So I thought that Sonic was very expensive in terms of pre-processing the circuit because you had to put some constraints on fan in and fan out. Like you had to change the way you process the circuit. Is this right? Or?
Well, it's not as efficient as Graph 16, but it's not expensive. It's if you look into the paper, from the paper we already expected it would be possible to have an efficient implementation because we can also batch. I didn't put numbers here for batching, but if you batch, for example, 10 or 100 or 1,000 proofs together, these times are going to get better. They are going to decrease a little bit. And also we have efficient parallelization of calculations. So, well, it's implemented in Rust with lots of optimizations. With respect to those two circuits, we still can optimize a little bit. So we know small implementations that can be added to optimize the code, but the biggest optimizations are done.
Do you plan to implement other, so I don't know, Marlin or things like this? Or?
Not right now. We have some work to do before that. We have plans to release this implementation of private transactions, maybe, I don't know. But first we need to finish this work. And so this is not planned.
Okay.
A very quick question. How long is the running time of updating? You don't have updating time here.
I'm afraid we don't have really time for a proper answer. We have 40 seconds to go. But feel free guys to chat independently and ask.
Okay, sure.
This is just a teaser.
So hi everyone, my name is Youssef El Housni. So I work for EY in the blockchain team, and I'm also recently a PhD student in École Polytechnique. So today's short presentation is going to be about recent joint work with Baghery, who works at INRIA Nancy. So the paper title is Optimized and Secure Pairing-Friendly Elliptic Curves Suitable for One-Layer Proof Composition. So yeah, so just because of the time, we'll just put some context. We are in the context of pairing-based zk-SNARKs for NP language. So those zk-SNARKs are zero-knowledge proofs that are succinct, meaning that the proof is short and easy to verify. And they use pairings, which are bilinear maps over elliptic curves, and they prove statements about NP language. So here, just to establish some notations, so since we are working on pairing-based zk-SNARKs, we have an elliptic curve E, so in short Weierstrass transform with coefficients A and B defined over a finite field of Q prime power. So we have a subgroup order so prime R and an embedding degree K, which means that the subgroup order divides the field size to K minus 1. So we have abstractly a pairing E, so a bilinear map that goes from G1 times G2 to GT. G1 and G2 are subgroups of order R, and GT is a group of R out of units. So this is the target group. So those are the notations for pairing-based zk-SNARKs. So we are interested in proof composition. So since we are working with NP language, so the verification algorithm is also for pairing-based zk-SNARKs an NP program. So one can generate a new proof that verifies the correctness of an old proof or many other proofs. And this way we can compose proofs. And since we have this succinctness property, this results in a single proof, which is short and easy to verify, that verifies inductively many other proofs. So if we talk about the arithmetical side of things, the problem is that one needs to express the language of verification in the language of the proof. And the verification in pairing-based zk-SNARKs is done with pairing checks. So which means that the arithmetic of the verification is an extension of the finite field of characteristic Q, and the verification is in F sub R, which is the field of subgroup order R of the elliptic curve. So if we want to do this, we have an arithmetic mismatch. So the first attempt would be to find an elliptic curve which has a subgroup order equal to the field size, but this is impossible for pairing-friendly elliptic curves, and also not secure for ordinary curves. The second attempt would be to simulate those operations, FQ via FR operations. So this is possible, but impractical. And the third attempt, which was introduced by Vanesa, Tromer, and Bielsa, is to use not only one elliptic curve, but maybe many elliptic curves, ideally two elliptic curves. So those two elliptic curves are constructed in a way that the finite field size of one is equal to the subgroup order of the other, and vice versa. And another relaxation is just to have this relationship in one sense. So those are chains of pairing-friendly elliptic curves, and they are used in ZKProof paper by Bo, Chiza, Misha, and others. So there have been propositions of such pairs and cycles. So in the MNT for MNT6 is one proposition implemented in LibFF library, and then MNT for 753, MNT6 753 implemented in CODA protocol. So those are the cycles, and the chains that have been a chain proposed by ZKSI, namely the inner curve BLS12 377 and the outer curve SW6. And in this work, we built on top of the same inner curve as ZKSI another outer curve that is fast. And we will show that it is at least 5 times faster to use this curve. So while we have all those constructions, we have them because if we look at the cycles, MNT for MNT6, so the security is not good at all. So we cannot use them. So we have two choices, whether we need to find another construction, but this is very unlikely to happen. There are some negative results as to find some new constructions, or to increase parameters. And by increasing parameters, we do not have the wanted performance. So this is a security performance trade-off, but in the chains, so we have two elliptic curves. So the inner curve is somewhat meets the state of the art with respect to this trade-off, but the outer curve is quite heavy and do not allow some optimizations we like to implement in pairing-based cryptography. So this work is another curve that is smaller by one field size, one machine work, but in the field size, but it's introduced many optimizations to have efficient implementation. So just to look at the big picture, we have SNARKs, so pairing-based SNARKs. We need one elliptic curve. So this elliptic curve should be pairing-friendly and should have a subgroup order -1, highly divisible, so highly two-additive, so divisible by high power of 2. So we can choose from a wide range of constructions from the literature, BN, BLSY. If we want to do recursive SNARKs with a 2-cycle, then we need to construct 2 elliptic curves in the same way, in a parallel fashion. And both elliptic curves should be pairing-friendly. The field size of one is equal to subgroup of the other, and vice versa. And all the parameters should be highly two-additive. If we want to do a 2-chain, then the key point here is that we can and we are allowed to construct those 2 elliptic curves in a sequential fashion. And by this, so we can start by constructing the first elliptic curve, and this gives us all the flexibility we want to construct a pairing-friendly elliptic, almost as the same as a normal SNARK, a non-recursive SNARK. And the second one is the trickiest one, because we need an elliptic curve to have exactly a subgroup order equal to the integer that is the field size of the previous curve. And from the literature, we know only Cox-Pinch algorithm to do so, and this what was used in ZKs. So in our work, so what we do, Cox-Pinch has 2 problems. So the field size, so the ratio between the field size and the subgroup is at least 2. So this makes the E sub 2 curve big, and it's not expressed in polynomial parameters. And polynomial parameters allows us very efficient implementation. So what we do is, so we propose a variant, so a modification of what we call Brezing-Weng method. So this is a variant of somewhat a mix of Brezing-Weng and Cox-Pinch, and we propose this elliptic curve defined over a field of 761 bits, so a smaller field, but all the properties that are polynomial expressions and the coefficient, the embedding degree, the complex multiplication discriminant allows us to do so. So field size smaller. So G2 elements are over the base field, over FQ. So this means a factor 6 compression and a factor 3 compression with respect to SW6 from ZK. So the pairing is optimized, and we have endomorphisms, efficient endomorphisms to do GLV multiplications over not only G1 but also G2. We have a multiplication by the cofactor, subgroup checks using the endomorphisms, and we have also secure constant time hash to curve. So on G1 with Alligator 2 and Wahbi-Bonnet work, and on G2 by a variant of SW map due to Wahbi Tibushi. So for the sake of time, here I just report the theoretical cost and the timings of a pairing computation, which is the building block of a verification. So the proving time is also faster, but here just the verification. So in violet is what ZK has, and in blue is the new curve. So we see that it's cost 4.5 times less operations in a smaller machine. So the pairing has two operations, 2 steps. So the first step is a Miller loop, and the second step is final exponentiation. So the Miller loop has a smaller size in our case. So we have 2 Miller loops, but with smaller size. And the final exponentiation is also optimized because we have polynomial expressions. So this is like a well-known lattice-based method to do the final exponentiation. So we implemented this in C++. So based in libFF library. So we implemented both SW6 from ZK and our to have a more apples to apples comparison. And it turns out that it is from 3 to 6 times faster to verify a gross 16 proof, for instance. So the idea is, so we use projective coordinates in Miller loop, but it turns out that in SW6, a fine coordinate due to NARI, it is faster. So we implemented both, and for example, if we take the slowest one or the faster one for SW6, it is 4.2 times faster to verify a gross 16 proof by batching the final exponentiation for this equation. Yeah, so applications.
Right.
Yeah, so this is the end. Just some applications. So ZK Silo to do verification of VLS signatures, Filecon to do circuit splitting, and baseline protocol to do batching of zk-SNARK. So the links are here. So the link of the paper, the C++ implementation, the SageMath and Magma script. And there is an issue if you want to contribute to have implementation in Rust. There is my email, Twitter, and Telegram if you want to reach out. That's it for me, and thank you.
All right. So we'll leave time for questions at the end if we have any time left. Let's just switch to the other speaker. Abhilash, you're muted. We are seeing your screen.
Okay, cool. Thank you for the opportunity. So this is for a change. This is an application of MPC and zero knowledge. So we are a startup from Bangalore. We are working on solving the cybercrime problem on social media platforms using zero knowledge and multi-party compute. So we believe that currently the internet is in the age of Stone Age because there is a rampant private data cannibalization and criminal content is not being penalized. These are challenges that we have in today's world, and these have to be solved in a privacy compliant perspective. So our proposal is to solve it using zero knowledge and multi-party compute. We'll quickly go into the solution. To just look into the problem, there are multiple variants of cybercrime, especially in social media platforms, especially in end-to-end encrypted platforms. For example, CSAM, crime against women, financial frauds, healthcare frauds, defamation, piracy, all these challenges. But there is no way, and there are enough legislations to protect it, but unfortunately, there is no way to identify the originator or to clean these content from the social media platforms. It's a big challenge, and everybody is facing challenges because of this. This is the problem statement. We all know what the state is, the cause of fake news and cybercrime and the challenges. So looking at the solution, we first designed the solution from a game theory perspective, identified what is the best option, looking at the stakeholders and the options available for them, and then we have identified a sweet spot, which will have a higher payoff for the individuals and penalty for criminal content originator. So the laundry list of requirements that we looked into before designing the whole protocol is first, two key requirements. The cyber content creators have to be identified, and similarly the originator and the spread prevention has to take place across social media platforms. Then there are certain regulations which are threatening to weaken end-to-end encryption because the monitoring is not possible at times. I know it's a big legal battle, but we want to protect end-to-end encryption by means of proposing a technology which can help achieve the above two objectives. And then freedom of expression is also protected. And the protocol is GDPR compliant. In this, we will not be tracking the forwarding of messages, and we would ensure that the social media platforms will have self-governance. So there are multiple other attributes like non-profilability, non-linkability, supporting multiple platforms, multiple types of content, anti-personal surveillance, which is very important, and fraud variant detection, and also supports dishonest majority, in which case the identity should not be disclosed even when there is a dishonest majority in the ecosystem. So let's quickly go into the ideal case, ideal world and real world comparison. So in the ideal world, let us say that there is end-to-end encryption angel, which can look into end-to-end encryption, and it can say when there is a requirement from, let us say, judiciary or law enforcement agency for identifying a specific originator, or to clean a specific content across social media platforms, it will be able to do it. But it is still, the other parties are still exposed to attacks, which are always there. So those are the attack attributes. But the system is also, it can ensure that the identity is not disclosed even when there is a dishonest majority. So when you look at the real world scenario, you have the social media platforms, you have oversight boards of the social media platforms and the DPO officers of them. Then you have reporters, fact checkers, law enforcement agencies, all of them interacting through zero knowledge proof. They can also collude, and even when they collude, the protocol is defined in such a way that the identity will not be disclosed unless it is legitimate. So let's look into the architecture. The components in the architecture are, there is one, let us say, it can be confidential compute system, a couple of databases, which would be sudo ID hash and message hash, and sudo ID to PAI table. This would be with the social media platform. That would be the social media platform, let us say WhatsApp, and the clients would be using the platforms, and the other participants would be reporters of criminal content, fact checkers. There would be a database for verified fake content, followed by law enforcement agency, judiciary, and judgments. Now, how would the protocol work together? So let us say a user registers with WhatsApp, he will get a sudo ID, and the keys will be attached to the sudo ID, not to the original ID. And the sudo ID and the original ID pair will be securely stored in, let us say, with the DPO in a confidential compute system. And then once the user, let us say, starts sending messages, let's say somebody sends a deep fake message violating a woman or which is very malicious, it gets forwarded to multiple parties. It's very harmful for the woman, let us say, and then she chooses to report that information to fact checker or the law enforcement agency. Law enforcement agency looks into it, and then they identify that it's malicious or criminal content. So it goes into the database. The database publishes just the hashes to the social media platform. The social media platform gets the hashes and sends the hashes to the user devices. User devices download the hashes, and they can compare it locally at the device level and delete those contents which are matching the hash. So this way we can prevent the spread of fake information or malicious information. And then it can also go on to law enforcement agency and judiciary. And judiciary can actually request for the sudo ID from the sudo ID message hash. And in the process, all these are zero knowledge compliant. If you have time, we will look into how it is zero knowledge compliant. It will get the sudo ID hash in the first place. Then judiciary can once again request for the PII of the hash, and then it can get the PII, and following that, they can start interacting. Now, this is completely GDPR compliant. When you look at the right to access, right to information, erasure, all these can be achieved. In this, for example, a person wants to know what are the hashes which are stored against his name. They can go to the oversight board and get all the hashes which are against their name, and then compare with the content that they have posted, which can basically prove to them that whatever is there in the database matches with what they have. It doesn't. So if at all there is any modification, they can go to the corresponding authority and complain with digital proofs that these information they have not created. Now, what are the attributes of the multi-party compute? The functionality here is multi-output, because different parties give in different inputs and get different outputs. It's reactive, and the network model is a broadcast in case of spread prevention, and it's a oblivious transfer in terms of origin identification. The adversaries can be both passive and active. Platforms can choose to be passive and collect more information. The adversaries can also be active, attacking multiple components. The security in this case, because the identity is only going to be disclosed to the judiciary, the security here is fully secure, a multi-party compute with solitary output. It also protects multiple types of attacks. For example, dishonest attacks. Let us say everybody colludes other than the judiciary, still they will not be able to identify the originator. Let us say everybody colludes other than the oversight board, they will never be allowed to go ahead and request for the sudo ID. Let us say everybody colludes without the reporter. People will never get the original content, they will just get the hashes. So they will not be able to do much with just the hashes, because these are all one-way hashes. And even let us say the end device is compromised. Let us say a user's device is compromised. The verification can be done with the receiver. That way, the problem can be addressed. So even if a phone is jailbroken, they are sending malicious hashes, it can be verified with the receiving party whether the hash is correct. That way, it can be cross-verified, and it can be ensured that malicious updates are not happening on the platform. Since I think we have a couple of minutes, let's quickly look into the game theory perspective and the zero knowledge perspective of the solution. So in a game theory perspective, what we have designed is that there are the options that people have, the strategies that people have, or anonymous social media platform, what we have now, that is the originator can't be identified, and weak end-to-end encryption platforms. Both cases are dangerous for general public because in one case they are continuously attacked by malicious content. On the other side, they have weak end-to-end encryption. Anybody, even a cyber criminal, can hack into the weak end-to-end cryptography and get to know what is being communicated. So the solution of a clean social media platform is beneficial because the penalty for the criminals is much higher than the payoffs that they will get. And for the general public, it is a much more cleaner ecosystem. So it's a win-win for the general public and the law enforcement agencies. And it's the if you see, it's a dominant strategy for the general public. When you look at the pseudo identity model that we are proposing in today's ecosystem, you can say there are two spectrums. One spectrum is for the content. The other spectrum is for the identity. Let us say platforms like WhatsApp, Telegram, etc. The content is end-to-end encrypted. So it is anonymous from a content perspective, but the identity is known to the platform. The platform knows the mobile.
Sure. Okay, so whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so I will start speaking. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Perfect. So this is joint work with Vanesa Daza, Alessandro Scafuro, and Alexandros, Zacharakis, and Abida Haque, who are also taking part in this presentation. We'll introduce the concept of mutual accountability in a couple of minutes, but first let's go with some motivation. So anonymity and accountability are both desirable but conflicting definitions in digital systems. On one side, we want anonymity so users can participate into the system without their actions being linked to their real identity. And on the other side, we want accountability so we can de-anonymize users who misbehave. The problem is that we cannot have accountability and total anonymity, so we have to give up some part of this anonymity. So we have to think, who are we going to be anonymous against? Maybe the set of users, maybe a majority of them, but for sure we will need a third party. We will call the authority. There is a party that is able to de-anonymize users when needed. So what's the problem with this party? Even when it's trusted, we have these giants that come into the picture and force our manager to de-anonymize users. It could be for political reasons, it could be through economical incentive, but in the meanwhile, users don't detect that they are going through a de-anonymization process. Many other works have deal with this issue by taking the natural path of spreading the trust among many parties. Still, there are two problems. First of all, it's never said who are these parties, where are they coming from, how are they elected, and also there are no formal definitions of how accountability is enforced by the presence of this party. There is an intuition that the authority has to ask for permission, but it's not clear whether this the anonymization request from the authority could be publicly verifiable.
Okay, so I will keep on. So how do we approach and how do we solve this problem? What we do essentially is we give a new definition, we formalize a new definition, which we call mutual accountability, and essentially captures this public verifiability of requests made by the manager, so that everybody knows that a request was made. So what we mean by mutual here, we mean that while users are anonymous, this anonymity can be revoked by an entity, by the manager. So the users are held accountable for their actions if, for example, they send bad messages. And on the other hand, the manager is as well accountable because everybody can see which requests it made for the anonymization. So he cannot act on whatever way it wants. Okay, and how do we achieve that? So essentially we use blockchain technology and we use zero knowledge proofs. So what we do is first, so we develop this publicly verifiable process that picks a committee, which we call the guardians. It picks it from a crowd where everybody can participate. It's open for participation, and we do that through blockchain. This committee creates a key pair and publishes a collective public key. Now, in the context of an application, when users of this application want to communicate and send messages, anonymous messages, what they do is essentially use a double encryption layer. First encrypting with the public key of the manager, and then encrypting this ciphertext with the collective public key of the guardians. Zero knowledge is used here to prove form of this ciphertext. And now, when the manager wants to de-anonymize a message and link it back to a user, it needs to get rid of this outer encryption layer, and it can do that only if the guardians cooperate. So the honest guardians will only cooperate if a manager requested the anonymization publicly through a blockchain where everyone can see it. And now, of course, okay, as you can imagine, we need honest majority for the guardians, because otherwise they can collude with a manager and de-anonymize everything. But our process of selecting this committee out of the blockchain gives us this essential guarantee, and against standard blockchain adversaries.
Okay. All right, it seems so far so good, because we've added this concept of guardians, but there are already maybe some issues that you might have in mind as a result. So the first question is, well, if we fix a set of guardians at the start, it's possible that over time these guardians can become corrupted, or it's possible that they, are no longer interested and they become lazy and they stop working. So one way to mitigate this issue is to allow the guardians to change over time. Of course, then maybe there's more problems or different problems that arise from that. So we have to consider that, okay, if these guardians are changing over time, what's going to happen with the older messages? They might become non-secure, or they might not be de-anonymizable anymore because the new guardians are unable to provide permission to de-anonymize the message. So to mitigate, to fix this issue, we use proactive secret sharing techniques. Now, we have already set up how to do the fixed set of guardians. So the work in progress is to figure out how would we like to model dynamic committees. And also one more thing here is that we need to differentiate the type of adversarial corruptions, because we're building off this blockchain, and it's possible that the adversary might want to corrupt resources in the consensus, or it's possible that he might want to do adaptive corruption in the protocol itself. And so there's this idea of a budget and computational resources the adversary has, and how he would like to use those. So in both of these cases, it's the point here is to get nice, rigorous definitions for how we want to do this. And as I said before, the construction idea is to use proactive secret sharing. All right, I don't know if we really have time for questions, but Alex's email is in the chat if you would like to talk with us more about this. Yeah, so I basically gave you an overview of the problem and what we've done already, and the ideas that we're working on. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we do have time for one question, if anybody wants to speak up. We have like 2 minutes, I think.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yes, in the last slide, it was very fast, and about this proactive MPC. Can you explain a bit more? What does it mean, this proactive?
I can take this one. So proactive secret sharing is a properties and protocols hub, so you can change your committee, but still keep the same secret. In this case, the pair of the keys that the users use to encrypt. So they can encrypt something today and a future committee can decrypt it because the secret is still the same, even though the committee changes.
Thank you so much. Any further questions, please use the contact information that the speakers provided in the chat. And I think we need to move on to the second talk.
Justin, me, right?
Yeah.
The second talk, yeah.
Yeah.
So let me share my screen. So I was actually planning to give with my colleague here. Let me just make it now. But that's she's another. Okay, let me just put it here. Oh, I don't know what's going on here. How can I make it down? Okay, let me put it here. Oh, down goes there here. Anyway. Okay. So I'm working at nChain. nChain is a company in London and consists of about 95 employees, and it's a kind of a research and development firm. Actually, what we do, we just do basically research and apply patent. We are 14 people, 12 PhDs and 12 masters, and here we are not only actually behind BSV, but also working on in general creating patents for distributed ledger. So I was very much busy with Multiparty Threshold ECDSA, and you all know that the problem is you securing the private key, and we have to make that secure. And Threshold ECDSA is used for custodian. It helps with the share of responsibility as well as prevents insider or outsider threats. So threshold signatures, there are n parties, and then as long as 2 of them collude, they can just generate the signature. This is basically, the scheme. So the problem of the threshold ECDSA, of course, with the EDDSA, the advanced course, or the Schnorr, that's much easier. But with ECDSA is a problem. And we require this threshold ECDSA because of Bitcoin and all those structure cannot be changed. So this is one part of this signature here, G to the K and K to the minus S, while and S is here. This is the generic kind of proof generation for signers. And if we go into the threshold version, we need some kind of multiplication between people. And here there are many schemes starting from January 2016, and they require really long messages and very complicated zero-knowledge proofs. We have implemented, and the communication as well as the computation was really huge. And Lindell proposed a semi-honest case, which is also very much very expensive. And then they improve it using a different way of secure multiparty computation, actually secure multiplication gate. And recently also, Yanar again improved their scheme to trustless setup, and also try to improve the efficiency. And that they use kind of multiplicative to additive conversion. So in the problem, the protocol they use assume that Alice has an A and Bob has B, and at the end, they want to have this multiplied version of S, which is a secret, which is assigning private key, and the goal is to actually at the end of the protocol, Ali is going to have A prime and Bob is going to have B prime, and if you sum up A prime plus B prime, it's going to be A times B, which is the secret. And they use a parallel encryption. Not only that, actually other schemes also they use parallel encryption. We have a kind of condition and must be greater than Q to the 3, which Q to the 3 is the ECDSA group. So at the end of this, why they converted into this A prime to P prime, because they want to actually use this parallel encryption because of the homomorphic property. So what I actually realized, I'm not really expert in the zk-SNARK. I'm trying to still learn this, but what I realized, if I look at the protocol, this ECDSA proof, I just counted all this communication cost and computation, and I just easily immediate conclusion, you can just say that zk-SNARK is much more efficient. I don't know whether I'm doing right, but I'm just asking this question, why the people, all these schemes are not using this efficient zero knowledge proof. And so this is question maybe to all of you. I don't know why they don't actually implement this. There are actually 2-3 implementations. We have also done implemented the existing scheme, but now for example, I'm planning to see how it's scalable with zk-SNARK. There are also other proofs with ZKProof, and also I counted that its communication complexity is really much better with the existing. Of course, they use if we consider this trustless setup, the zk-SNARK of course may not be suitable because of the trusted setup there. Maybe we can go with the bulletproofs or I don't know, with star construction. So this is just an idea. I mean, I'm really open to your questions, or give me some highlights for me to work. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a solid probably 4 minutes before they're going to pull us back for any questions or discussion. Does anyone have a question? So not familiar enough with this line of work maybe to say anything particularly insightful, but in general, there's this paradigm of using zero knowledge proofs in multi-party computations, to go from semi-honest to malicious security. But you're proposing here to just directly use zero knowledge proofs even in the semi-honest case? Yeah,
no, actually in both. I mean, it could be in malicious case as well. I mean, the thing is, this working with Euler modulus with n squared is quite large with respect to the ones that we are working with other schemes with zk-SNARK. The proof size is fixed. With the multi-party case, that's that's not acceptable because it only works with 2-party and in the semi-honest case. And if you go to with malicious case, it's become not practical, but I'm talking, for example, I was interested in the Gennaro's, the latest design that's quite efficient, but it would be much more efficient if this proofs and the constructions, maybe with the zk-SNARK with the construction, we will not be able to require this expensive Euler, modulus. Maybe we may use other type of efficient construction, even for example the different kind of encryption scheme instead of this expensive. They use this Euler because we have conventional zero knowledge proofs for Euler or DLP, but since we have this zk-SNARK, we can get this advantage and use in any kind of construction and as an encryption or other type of use cases. This is this multiparty threshold is very much important in the blockchain world, and especially for venture capitals, exchanges, even for users, for example, for decentralized exchanges like DEX, this scheme is very much becoming very much important. So in that case, if more people are using the scheme, definitely the complexity is going to be an issue. So I was thinking, why not people are just replacing all this? So yeah.
So are there any other questions? If not, I'm happy to inject a question of ignorance here. Okay, so can I ask you when do we use multi-party threshold on the blockchain? Like what's the application?
For exchanges, for example, it's used for cold wallets. With cold wallets, the companies they use HSMs, and the HSMs are the single point of failure. And it also provides, prevents kind of insider and outside threats. You can use multi-party signatures, like, it's a kind of an onion structure. You just sign on top of each other, but that's definitely not scalable on blockchain because the data increases linearly. So, and also it's very dangerous to actually use multi-party signatures instead of threshold, because if the fund is too huge, like if you have, for example, $1 million in an account, and if an attacker listens the channel, he can easily find the people, because he will know the threshold, he will also know the overall numbers, and in that case, he can just basically threaten the owner of these funds. With the threshold, there's going to be only one signature, so from attacker point of view, he will not be able to know the threshold, the overall numbers as well. So in that case, the funds will be safe, and also it's very useful for custodian. Custodian, for example, banks are not involved in the blockchain world because they don't know how to protect the key. So with the threshold mechanism, for example, they can use their branches, distribute the key. In that case, they can just protect the key. Even if a user, lose his or her key, in that case, it's not going to be a problem, because bank will be able to regenerate the key using the threshold system. So it's a kind of a powerful tool in practice, and so I was interested in to improve the efficiency.
I see. Got it. Great. Thank you.
Awesome. So yeah, my name is Ronald Mannak. I'm the founder of Starling Protocol. And I want to talk to you about a product that we're working on, which is called Starling Studio. Now, this product is not for you if you're listening to this talk, most likely. We're making a product for people who are new to zero-knowledge proofs, because we think that there will be a time pretty soon where people start developing applications on smart contracts running on zero-knowledge proofs, kind of things. And we need tools for these kind of people who are not the experts in zero-knowledge proofs. And to be honest, I don't think there are many experts in the field. And probably like the people we have online in this conference is the vast majority of the people who know what zero knowledge is, to be honest. So the story is that we are raising money for a seed round for Starling, which in the end should be like layer 1 protocol. But it turned out that there was not much interest in layer 1 protocols, financing those for the VCs. So we thought, like, with the money that we did raise, let's build a first product. And then we can decide which direction we could go, whether it would be like a layer 1 protocol or a layer 2 rollup, or software as a service, because I think that there's definitely a possibility there as well for zero-knowledge proofs. So that's how we got started. I don't have a demo to show. I just was added to the list, and last night the version I was working on did not compile yet. But the idea is as follows. So I think what would really helpful for people new to the space would be like a visual IDE. Think of Visual Studio, but specifically for zero knowledge proofs. In particular, we are very big fans of zinc, the language that Meta Labs introduced a few weeks ago. So that is kind of our focus now, to have like a visual IDE, a one-click IDE for developers who want to get started in zinc. And of course, you cannot do everything in zinc. It's pretty limited to things like smart contracts, these kind of things for now. And we think that's fine. We think it's fine for like the audience that we're after, and people who want to do like more difficult things in zinc, they might be able to do so in the future, because the language will evolve, of course, and we're just going to follow that part. So what is it? It's a visual IDE. Think like Visual Studio, but completely tailored towards zero knowledge proofs. So you can run, you can verify, you can check, you can edit the proofs, for example, and see what happens with if the verifier encounters an invalid proof. So it's kind of a playground for people who want to get their, I don't know, first steps into the zero knowledge space. It will be open source, and we will have the first version out in the next few weeks.
Okay, brilliant. We maybe have sort of 40 seconds for anybody to make any comment. Otherwise, we can take it offline.
I've been building a visual IDE for zero knowledge proofs as well, so maybe
nice.
I think it's an excellent idea. I'm a huge proponent of that idea.
We have a connection, brilliant.
Yeah.
But that's not what I'm presenting. That's totally different.
So does this lead naturally onto the second presentation? Take it away.
Oh, but that's okay. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. I made a short presentation.
So I've been told that they're going to call us back in at 25 minutes past the hour. So we have exactly 8 minutes.
Okay, I'm going to talk really fast then. Oh, sorry. No. Okay, so I'm working on a tool called zkp-benchmarker, and the goal is to create reproducible benchmarks for the end-to-end zk-SNARK libraries. Motivation is that if it's not reproducible, benchmarks go bad very quickly as libraries get updated. The other thing is at Consensus Health, where I work, we're focused on use cases different than what very common use cases are right now, which is right now, I think a lot of the benchmarks are about fixed input algorithms with fixed input size, or they're things geared towards blockchains with how much transaction throughput there is. But we're more interested in verifiable compute on a remote server, or maybe combining some kind of data analytics compute with a cryptographic primitive such as a signature scheme. And so for that, we have, it's different. So this is just a quick diagram of how a lot of zk-SNARK libraries work. You have a front end. I know you guys all know this, but high-level DSL to R1CS, and then a back end, which libsnark and Bellman are the two most common ones used that does the trusted setup, the proof generation, and the verification. Quick overview of the library. It has a config.yaml as an entry point. So you list the library name, the command names, you need a Docker image, and then if you just have the program, so this is a Zacharakis program included in there, then you can invoke it through a command line, as many iterations as you want for better data, and it'll spin up a Docker container, run through all the commands, and collect runtime, memory usage, and CPU into a CSV using the GNU time, which is a Linux executable. We're considering replacing that with a tool that collects better metrics.
So they're just to butt in for a second, that they've said that we have another 5 minutes, so you don't need to run. I've just been told apparently. So
dialed down my speed talking a tiny bit. Cool. So far we've focused on front ends. We're comparing Zacharakis to Pequin. Pequin was developed in like early 2010s, and it was focused more on verifiable compute on a remote server. So what we're really measuring is the effectiveness of the compiler. What is its runtime, what's its memory usage, and then what's the number of constraints in the resulting R1CS instance. And we so far have tested it on programs that do matrix times vector multiplication. So it hard codes an n by m matrix, and then it takes an m-dimensional vector as input and then outputs the product. So here are some preliminary results. This is max resident set size, so the maximum amount of RAM used in a process, and this is averaged over 10 iterations. What we see is that Zacharakis' memory usage increases as the size of the matrix increases, whereas Pequin stays consistent. One thing that isn't shown here is that we tried to run a 50 by 784 matrix, and it ran out of memory after an hour running on a server with 256 gigs, so very big. And so yeah, and then this is the runtime of the compilation. So how long does it take to compile? Same sort of results. Zacharakis increases as the matrices get bigger, and then Pequin stays pretty consistent. So we're probably going to switch to Pequin because of these results. Now, things that we have in progress to make it better. One critique we got is that we can't prove that the implementations are equivalent because they're in 2 different languages. So I'm totally new to Cuck, but I've been learning and trying to make a certified compiler from a high-level DSL to Pequin, and then from that same DSL to Zacharakis. And we're assuming that if you can prove that it's equivalent to the high-level DSL, then we have some guarantee that they're equivalent to each other. And then in addition to measuring the resulting RMTS instance, I think it might be good to also measure how long, what the proving time is of the associated proof, because that might be a more direct capture, that might capture the effectiveness more directly. I think that it's not just constraints, but also how sparse the constraints are that matter. So those are things. And then GitHub repo and email. It's public. And yeah, do we have a few minutes for, I would really appreciate any feedback. This is a work in progress and I'm hoping to get it published somewhere soon. So yeah, thank you for listening. I think you're muted, or?
I am muted. Very good. So does anybody have any questions or comments on this to take forward?
I have a question. Am I muted?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yep.
All right. So is it possible to prove that an optimization and the unoptimized version are the same using Coke?
So you mean if the compiler had some sort of optimization mechanism in it, if you could prove that?
So if I had two circuits and I optimized one, is it possible to prove that they're both equivalent?
So you can prove, like with big step, something called big step semantics, and like Dave, please correct me on this, but I think you can prove that they result in the same final state, basically. So yeah, you can prove that they're equivalent in some sense. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, we have apparently we have another 7 minutes. So if people want to continue the discussion, feel free. Otherwise, maybe it's a chance to get a coffee before the next session. But I mean, this will still be open.
I have something to show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So.
Yeah, I mean, unless anybody has any objections.
Okay. No, I was scheduled for the lightning session.
Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to talk about it again. So can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay. So it's an e-voting platform that is using zero-knowledge proof on blockchain, and it's very similar to Semaphore that we saw on Monday. So that's a good point. I don't need to explain it. Just 2 words that so users can vote on a blockchain by sending their vote with zero-knowledge proof that this vote is valid. Okay, so it's not related at all with Semaphore because I didn't know about it, and it's an idea we had last year. We wrote a paper with Vincenzo Ionivo and Alexandra Campa. We submitted it to Itasect 2020, one of the biggest IT security conference in Italy, and we could present it just before the lockdown. Okay, so for implementation, we use a middleware that we develop at Scuba Research. It allows us to write a statement in C++. So, for instance, to get a circuit for SHA-256, we just need C++ implementation of SHA-256, and ZK will generate the circuit for us. This is very useful. It also supports elliptic curve operation, so with the use of a special type that we can use in C++, which give us field operation for almost for free. Sorry, but this field operation, of course, they are in the underlying field of the zero-knowledge proof scheme. Also, in the ZK integrates various zero-knowledge proof libraries, and so this is very important for it again because we want transparent setup because we don't want to trust any authority. And our specificity is that we design it with the target of state political elections, and we think that e-voting can bring a lot of added value to democracy. As an example, I would say that we have elections that are being cancelled now because of COVID-19. And with an online system, we would not need it. But such settings is quite complex, and I think I don't know any system that is really perfect in that sense. So there are systems that are used for real state election, but they all showed security issues that have been publicly reported. And there are some secure systems, but I don't believe that currently they scale very well to this setting. And if we want to see a bit more the requirements that will require such a setting, so we want a blockchain that is public because we don't want to post in the robust. This is very important because as long as you organize an election, we'll have lots of hackers attacking your system. This is for sure. It must be performant because we want to work with millions of voters, and it must be cheap. So if you consider paper-based voting, we estimate the cost of handling paper for around $1 per ballot. So here we must be much cheaper. So at the end, the last two requirements, they show that they disqualify proof of work blockchain, and the first two they disqualify non-proof of work blockchain. So we see that it's a difficult environment. So what can we do? So our solution is to have a dedicated blockchain. We think that having only transaction being valid votes have a real positive impact on the security model of the blockchain. Also, the verification of the zero-knowledge proof can be done at the consensus level. It doesn't need to be implemented in a smart contract, which is not easy to do. Of course, we cannot just have one blockchain for one vote because an election needs a lot of resources, but for a very small amount of time and fixed duration. So we want to have one platform that will handle many elections. And for this, we will need a specific tokenomics. So the idea is that you have a vote organizer that publishes a list of voters, and he needs to deposit some tokens. So the number of tokens will depend on the number of voters, but also if everybody wants to organize a vote at the same time, the price will increase. Another important point is that we allow double voting. So this is very important because it brings for performance and security reasons, in fact. So for performance, we don't need to prove that we didn't vote previously. This kind of proof is very costly, so we don't need that. Also, a node will not need to check the whole blockchain when you include a vote in a transaction. A vote in a block. Of course, we should not have double voting in one block. Not that easy to check, and we don't want somebody to vote a million times. So for this, we can have simple spamming filters. Okay, and with this system, we have a few properties. I will not go through them because it's very easy to show that we have these properties. They are basic properties for a voting system. But there are also some, and they come from zero-knowledge proof scheme properties on the block as well. But there are some challenges. So a couple of challenges, and we think we know how to resolve them, like except for coercion resistance, which is much more difficult to achieve. Even if in paper voting, it's difficult with people taking selfies inside the polling booth. But we believe that SSIs can help a lot for coercion resistance. Other challenges, we need an open blockchain, so we need to ensure that a large amount of nodes are honest. We need to trust also the list of voters, so this is very important. So for a political election, we could, for instance, have some representatives of political parties checking this list. And the last point is standardization is also very important, because for people to trust this system, they need to trust zero knowledge proof the same way that one would trust a digital signature. And this can be only achieved through standardization, so that this proof can be checked with an external system. Okay. So I'm done for it. So we are on very early stage. And so here you can find some links if you are interested.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments? No, everything was crystal clear.